that it?
Good morning, Baptist-Costals.
Good morning. What?
Baptist-Costals. Yeah, you know, we're Baptist, but every now and then we slip into Pentecostal. So, we're a different breed. We're the Baptist-Costal. You ever notice, you study the New Testament, and in order to study it, you have to go over to the Old Testament to really understand what you're studying.
That's right.
And you get over to the Old Testament, and somehow you just can't get out of it. You get over there, and God just seems to keep you over there. And it seems like lately here, all my sermons have been coming out of the Old Testament. So to be consistent, if you will, turn in your Bibles to 1 Kings, chapter 17. 1 Kings, chapter 17. A couple of sermons back, I guess it was, I mentioned the story of Elijah and the widow woman with the barrel of meal and the cruse of oil, the bottle of oil. So that's where we're going to go this morning. We're going to go 1 Kings chapter 17. We're going to go down to the 8th verse. And the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, him being Elijah, Arise, get thee to Zarephath, which belongeth to Zidon, and dwell there. Behold, I have commanded a widow woman there to sustain thee. That's the verses I want to look at this morning. Went to a singing last night, a benefit singing. Crystal River and Missionaries Legacy was there. And I had an extraordinary and awesome experience last night during the singing. I had an epiphany. Any of y'all ever had an epiphany? That's a revelation. God revealed something to me. I was sitting there and I heard these voices in my head. Now, don't look at me like I'm psychotic. It's not that kind of voice. I heard 3 distinct voices in my head. And I'll tell you about that, but let me tell you, when I first accepted the call to preach, God had been calling me to preach all my life. And I had a battle with him for all my life growing up. It was in September of the year that I got up and preached my first sermon. 2 months later, in November, right after I preached that first sermon, Satan really started hitting me hard in my life. Everywhere I went, everything I turned around, it seemed like he was throwing bad things at me. It was early in the morning, about 6:30 in the morning. I'm on Highway 69. It's pouring down rain. And if you've ever been on that highway, it gets kind of curvy up around Oakland, Alabama there. And I was in a little Honda Civic. And I hit a patch of water in the car hydroplane. And I was going around a curve when it happened, and when you hydroplane, you just lose all steer and control of the car. There was a little bitty shoulder on that road on the corner, and then it went off a big deep ditch or hill there. My car hit that shoulder, the shoulder gave way, the car rolled down the hill over, and it landed up like this against a tree. Well, I bring that up because last night they were singing about how God's always there for you. And I heard the first voice, which I've heard this voice many times, and that was the voice of Satan. Because I had said to myself, yeah, God's always there for you. Well, the voice of Satan says, you remember after you started preaching when you had that accident and you rolled the car down, he said, where was your God then? And I was sitting there thinking about that, and then I heard the second voice, and that was the voice of God. And God said something very profound to me. He said, I went there before you did. because I know the mind of Satan. And I thought, wow, that's kind of a weird thing to say. I went there before you did. When I rolled that car down that hill, it came to rest against a tree about 20 or 30 foot down the hill. The tree was just a little bitty tree, just a few inches around. And my car rested against that tree. And when the tow truck pulled my car out of there, he said, I don't understand how a 2,000-pound car could have been stopped by a little bitty tree that's just a few inches big. He said, somebody was riding with you. I got to thinking about that, because he said it was about 100 more feet to the bottom of that, and there was a creek at the bottom, and it would have been raining, and he said you would have ended up probably upside down, trapped in your car in that creek. Well, I was trapped in the car, and I had to kick the windshield out and crawl out through the windshield. What happened is God went there before I did.
Yes, amen.
And he prepared a way for me to get out of that situation, to survive that accident. He put that little tree in that exact spot
Amen.
before I even was there. So it was very profound when you think about it. God went there before you did. He always goes there before you do.
Yes, it does.
No matter what the situation is, no matter what the problem is. In the story with the oats, Elijah had to travel 100 miles through his enemy's territory. Zidon is where Jezebel, the queen, was born and grew up. That was her territory. And she was out to kill all of God's prophets. So he had to go 100 miles, and he had to pass right through his enemy to get there. But God said that he had a widow woman there prepared to sustain him when he got there. Why? Because God went there before Elijah did. And I thought about that, and that was kind of a revelation to me. God goes there before us. In a lot of situations, when God was in the flesh, he suffered some of the things that we went through. So I told Satan, I said, Satan, I said, give up. I said, the battle's been won. There's no need in fighting anymore. It's over. Stand up for a moment. I want you to do something. I want you to take your arms and I want you to form a V for victory. You see this? Now, spread it out a little bit. You see that cross? I told Satan, I said, the victory was at the cross. The battle was won. V for victory. The battle was won. Then, something happened that's never happened in my life before. I heard a third voice. And that was the voice of Jesus. I've been hearing the voice of God all my life, and I've been hearing the voice of Satan, but this is the first time I heard the voice of Jesus. And you know what he told me? He said, Ferlin, when I told Satan about the cross, he said, I went there before you. Whoa, that's the same thing God told me. He said, why? Because I love you, and I didn't want you to have to suffer the burden of the cross. I'm sitting in the singing going, wow. Like Brother Ron said, I had about 3 different messages, and I was trying to decide which one I was leaning toward. They didn't have anything to do with this. But when God hit me with that revelation, and Jesus spoke up, and I heard the voice of Jesus, and both of them telling me, I went there before you did. I prepared a way. Jesus went there before me. Jesus suffered so I wouldn't have to. Jesus prepared a way for me to get to his Father. He prepared the way to heaven. All the situations in my life, God in the form of Jesus, went there before me. And always prepares a way for me to overcome whatever Satan's throwing at me.
That's right. Amen.
He always prepares the way. It's just sometimes I don't see that way because I don't look hard enough. But I've been in many bad situations in my life, and somehow, through the power of God and the love of Jesus, I've made it through those situations. Because God went there before I did.
Yes.
God goes there before you do.
Amen.
That was a revelation to me, an epiphany. I could just think, wow, he's already there. Whatever problems I have to face the rest of my life, God's already been there and prepared a way out for me. Jesus is there to love me, to guide me, to direct me. You have to listen to those voices. It's a feeling, when Jesus himself talks to you, that's a feeling I can't describe unless you've had it yourself. You know, when Satan talks to me, I feel very uncomfortable. You ever been in a situation where you just felt out of place and uncomfortable? If Satan's talking to you, you just got that feeling of unease. You just feel out of sorts. You just don't feel right. When I get that feeling while I'm hearing that voice, because sometimes Satan can sound spiritual. He can sound that way. The Bible even says that he can appear to us as an angel of light. He can appear to us as something good, but it's not. But when he does that, there's always that feeling of uneasiness.
Yes.
That something just ain't right about this.
Yes.
You got to listen to that feeling. When God talks to you, there's a serenity, there's a peace, there's a calmness.
Yes.
So you know that that's God talking to you. When Jesus talked to me, all I felt was pure love. And it's very awesome. But you got to listen when God talks to you.
Yeah.
And you got to remember what he told me. I went there before you did. Every situation I've come across in my life, no matter how bad it was, I'm standing here today because God went there before me and prepared a way. That way may be through somebody else that God sends into your life.
That's right. Amen.
It may be somebody anonymous. You don't know who did it, but somebody did. Give God the glory for it.
Amen.
Right.
And remember, I can't stress enough, he went there before I did. He went there before you did. He's already been there, and he's already fixed it for us.
That's right.
I told one time about the Beverly Hillbillies. Some of us older folks remember that show.
I remember that show.
Remember Uncle Jed? He's out there hunting up some food. They can barely put food on the table. They have to go out there and hunt every day for food or whatever. And he shoots up this oil out of the ground. They become rich. They move to Beverly Hills. They still remain hillbillies. But they have no worries about where they're going to get food, or where they're going to get electricity, or whatever necessities they have. You know how long it takes for oil to form under the ground? Thousands of years. That means that God went there before Uncle Jed. and prepared thousands of years before. He prepared a way to sustain whoever lives. There might be things in our life that God prepared thousands of years ago for that moment, because He was there before I was. He had the widow woman ready for Elijah. Elijah had 100 miles to go. He had a long trip. But before he even left, God had been there before him, and God had a way to sustain him when he got there. And God told him that. Read the rest of the story. Read before that. Because God provided by having birds, ravens, bring bread and meat to Elijah every morning and every evening before he sent him over there. God was sustaining him while he was running from his enemies. And He'll do the same for us.
Yes, He will.
He'll prepare for us a way. He'll sustain us through the battle. Satan still wants to battle. We tend to battle with him. But we got to remember what Jesus told me. There was victory at the cross.
Sure.
Satan's fighting the battle that he's already lost.
Sure.
Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of that. I have to tell myself that sometimes when I'm fighting something. I have to just say, Satan, the battle's already been won. There's no hope for you. I have hope because I have God and I have the love of Jesus. And God said that He was going to sustain me in every promise. Like the songs say, every promise that God ever made me, He's gone through with it. He's never backed down on a promise.
Sure.
His word is gold. When God said it, God meant it. What's the saying? God said it, I believe it, and that settles it.
Sure.
There's no more to be said about it. I'm still reeling. Still feeling that awesomeness from that revelation. That He was there before me, waiting. He knows the mind of Satan. That's what He told me. He knows what Satan's going to try, but he's going to give us a victory when we get there. Because the battle's already been won. Think about it. What I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to go to open the altar, and I'm going to go to the altar, and I'm going to thank God for going there before I did. I'm going to thank Him that whatever battles I have coming up in my life, I've already have a victory. I just have to accept the victory that God gives me. God's put the action out there, I just got to put it in my motion. So let's go to the altar. Let's thank God for it. And let's pray for those upcoming situations and thank God that He's going to get us through it.